Whetstone. I'm Chairman of British Dressage and have great pleasure in thanking you all for joining us this evening for the 2020 British Dressage Annual General Meeting, albeit under the most unusual circumstances. It's very strange not being together in person, but we hope that nevertheless you'll find the meeting interesting and worthwhile, and that we'll all be together again next year. As usual, we'll cover the formal business required of the AGM and then receive updates from our Finance Director, Caroline Godfrey, myself as Chairman, Chief Executive Jason Bortigham, and Chief Operating Officer Ben Waterhouse. Board directors this evening, which will instead they will be recorded and broadcast on the BD website at a later date. It goes without saying that it's been a difficult year for everyone, including those of us involved in British Dressage, but I'm extremely proud at the way the BD team have worked together to come up with solutions and of the community spirit within British Dressage, including all of our members, whether riders, owners, trainers, organisers or officials, who've all played their part in helping us overcome the obstacles that have been put in our way. Thank you to everyone who's done their bit by adhering to the COVID protocols we've put in place. Your ongoing support and cooperation is much appreciated, as it helps us to keep the show on the road. The health and safety of all our members is of paramount importance, and we will all need to remain vigilant and follow the guidelines for as long as needed in order to provide a safe environment for everyone to continue enjoying our sport. More on the impact that this crisis has had in the last 6 months will follow. But first, I will hand over to our Chief Executive, Jason Bortigham, for the formal business of our AGM. Jason.
Thank you, Linda, and good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. I would now like to open the formal part of our AGM. You will have hopefully already seen the notice of AGM, including our ordinary and special business, as well as the 2019 accounts for British Dressage on the BD website. I will take as read the notice convening the meeting, and of course, due to the unique circumstances we have this evening, we have received no formal apologies for the meeting. So just to cover the ordinary resolutions that we will be voting on this evening. The first is to elect the BD Youth Director. The second is to receive the financial statements of British Dressage for the year ended 31st of December 2019, as well as the Directors and Auditors reports. And then also to reappoint the auditors of British Dressage and to authorise the board to fix their remuneration. We also have one special resolution this evening to adopt the new Articles of Association that have been submitted to the meeting and posted on the BD website. But first of all, we will move on to our first ordinary resolution, where it is proposed that the BD Youth Director is re-elected. Claire Moyer, who has held this post for the past 4 years, was unopposed, and she has put forward her proposed strategy and vision for her second term as BD Youth Director on the BD website. And that's still there in our new section for you to view. Now, I can confirm on a show of hands that all members present have voted in favour of this resolution. We have also received 28 proxy votes with unanimous support in favour of this resolution, and therefore I declare the resolution carried, and Claire Moyer is duly re-elected as BD Youth Director of British Dressage. Well done to Claire. We look forward to working with you for the next 4 years. Moving on to our second ordinary resolution. This is to receive the financial statements of British Dressage for the year ended 31st of December 2019 and the Directors and Auditors reports thereon. For this section of the AGM, I would like to hand over to our Finance Director, Caroline Godfrey, to present the 2019 accounts. Caroline.
Thank you, Jason, and good evening, everyone. As we move on to the second ordinary resolution, I'm pleased to present the audited financial statements for the year ended 31st of December 2019, though I have to say that 2019 does seem a very long time ago now. So in 2019, our total income was slightly lower than in the previous year at 4.49 million, but expenditure remained well under control and a surplus of 210,430 was achieved, compared with 303,000 in the previous year. As members will be aware, we've been building reserves over recent years to support our IT investment and to ensure that BD could cope in any unforeseen crisis. We probably didn't expect to have to cope with what 2020 has thrown at us, but thankfully financially we've been well resourced to cope, and we were pleased to be able to offer some extension to horse registrations, though balancing this with the overall needs of BD in the medium and longer term. So our balance sheet at the 31st December 2019 shows total net assets of 2.223 million, almost all of which is in unrestricted funds, which can be utilised by BD as it needs to use them. Cash deposits remain strong, and the increased fixed assets total reflects the IT investment, costs of which are written off over 3 years from the point that that particular phase of work comes into use. The new auditors required a number of changes to the disclosures and formatting of the accounts, including the 2018 comparatives, but there were no changes to the actual 2018 figures. The narrative on the statutory accounts inevitably refers many times to the coronavirus crisis and its impact on BD. This is because we're required to report on material matters that occur after the year end and up to the date of signing of the accounts, which was in August 2020. However, the auditors are happy that BD has strong reserves to continue its activities, and I will read out their statement to members a bit later. The narrative also refers more to risk management and BD's approach to this, which was an area that BD was already focusing on prior to the pandemic, and we continue to refer to 2 risk registers, one for our general business approach and then a very detailed coronavirus one. The income pie chart is just a quick visual picture of where our income came from in 2019. A total of 44% came from membership and horse registrations, with a further 6% from sports operations and 15% from championships. A further 26% from training and education, with the balance from trading, such as the sale of test sheets and sundry sources. These are, of course, gross figures. And then expenditure in 2019 shows 40% on training and education, always a major priority for BD, and 23% on championships. Support overheads totalled 15%. All BD activities are well controlled financially, and our thanks go to all our staff for their prudent approach to the use of members' funds. Can I also take this opportunity to thank our finance manager, Angie Cook, and her team for all their diligent work behind the scenes throughout the year. So our 2019 work included the full implementation of our Finance and Business Development Committee. The committee meets regularly and during the initial stages of lockdown convened weekly calls and focuses on all non-sport related aspects of running BD. We currently have 1 non-director on the committee, but would certainly welcome interest from other members, and we'll be putting out details of available roles shortly. We also went through a thorough selection process with appropriate due diligence to appoint investment managers for BD, and we selected Bruin Dolphin for this. We were about to place funds with them in early March 2020 when matters overtook us, and for now we have decided to delay any stock market investment, though the committee is keeping matters under review. As advised at the AGM last year, we also had the services of our new auditors this year, Mazars, and we were very pleased with how they conducted the audit in difficult circumstances and also offered helpful and constructive improvements to the content of the statutory accounts. Finally, in 2019, we initiated a review of our VAT processes, and this remains underway, having been delayed by pandemic priorities. But we are hopeful that in due course, some VAT savings can be identified. To turn to 2020 initiatives, our priority in the last 6 months, as previously mentioned, has been risk management as driven by the pandemic. This has included the development of new financial models which allow detailed sensitivity analysis and forecasting for the next 3 financial years. This more detailed forecasting had always been on our agenda, but was accelerated by necessity and has enabled us to update our forecasts readily as the national situation unfolds. Some of our cash reserves have inevitably been used during the pandemic, but our latest forecast showed that the deficit in 2020 should be under 300,000, a much improved position from our early estimates. We are looking at cash management software options to ensure that the cash we do have earns as much as it can at present until we can be comfortable with implementing our agreed investment policy. We also require flexibility on access to cash in case of further lockdown, as just announced for Wales and several other regional lockdowns. We need to have access. There can be no financial givens for 2020 or 2021. Further investment is being made in terms of database reporting to ensure that the financial data is extracted that will assist in managing BD and moving BD forward in its agreed strategic direction. And finally, we had hoped to have a major gift aid promotion in 2020, but this will now be delayed to 2021. In advance of the approval of the 2019 financial statements, I have a paragraph from Mazars to read out. I should also say that Mazars were willing to attend this evening, but we agreed mutually that it was probably not necessary. Their statement is as follows. Mazars were appointed as the external auditors for the year ended 31st December 2019. The audit process took place remotely due to the impact of COVID-19. There were no significant or major issues identified within our audit findings, and no material misstatements were identified. There were a few instances where the 2018 prior period balances and disclosures were incorrect or not in accordance with the current accounting standards, but these were corrected within the 2019 financial statements. The financial statements have been prepared in accordance with the relevant regulations and accounting standards. No significant internal control deficiencies were raised within our audit findings report. So finally, I'd like to thank again our finance team and the auditors at Mazars for all their work in producing the 2019 annual report and accounts. I can also confirm that we have received no questions on the accounts from members. So I'll now hand back to Jason for the formal resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. So for our second ordinary resolution, I propose that the financial statements, together with the Director's report and the Auditor's report for the period ended 31st of December 2019, be received. I can confirm that on a show of hands, all members present voted in favour of the resolution. We also received 28 proxy votes with unanimous support in favour of this resolution, and therefore I declare the resolution duly carried. Under our third ordinary resolution, we would like to propose that Mazars are reappointed as auditors of British Dressage and authorise the board to fix their remuneration. Once again, I can confirm that on a show of hands, all members present voted in favour of this resolution. We also received 28 proxy votes, again with unanimous support in favour, and therefore I declare this resolution carried. Mazars is duly re-elected and the board is authorised to fix their remuneration. We now move on to our special business. There is just one special resolution, which is item 4 on the notice, which is the approval and adoption of the new Articles of Association of British Dressage. A copy of the proposed new Articles of Association with a marked up document for comparison purposes has been on the British Dressage website since Tuesday the 8th of September. However, I would like to take this opportunity to just provide some more background on the proposed changes. Under the revised Articles of Association, the board will have the ability to appoint up to 5 extra directors as independent, non-executive directors to oversee some of the business aspects of British Dressage that do not require dressage-specific technical knowledge. This includes the current positions of the Finance Director and Business Development Director, but may in future also bring in additional expertise in key areas if we require, such as legal, human resources, or information technology. All positions will continue to be advertised, and of course, members are still welcome to apply if they may meet the relevant criteria for each role. But this process will just help to ensure that we have the people with the right knowledge and experience to advise, guide, and support the development of British Dressage in the future. As the organisation continues to grow, it is vitally important that we have high calibre individuals at board level with the skill sets and the competencies required to drive the business forwards. This is particularly relevant, of course, at the current time with the challenges that we will face in the wake of the coronavirus crisis, where strategic oversight and good governance will be absolutely critical. The 6 sport-specific technical director portfolios and the chair position will continue to be elected by the membership by electronic vote. If the proposed articles are approved in future years, this online vote will then be binding and not subject to ratification at the AGM. This will ensure that these board director roles are elected by the full membership, rather than just subject to the approval of a small group in attendance at the AGM or those who submit their proxy votes. From 2021, this will include the ability to vote on candidates who are standing unopposed, as well as those who are seeking re-election for a second term. The majority of board positions will therefore still be elected by the BD membership. Under the proposed articles, both elected and appointed directors will be eligible to stand for 2 terms of 4 years, up to a maximum of 8 years in total. The BD board currently has 8 directors, including the chair, elected by members, plus 1 board-appointed extra director, who is Suzanne Homewood, our Business Development Director. The proposed changes would move the Finance Director position from elected to appointed status at the end of the first term of the current role holder, Caroline Godfrey. All directorships will continue to be advertised, with applications scrutinised by the Nominations Committee before recommendations are put forward to the board or wider membership. The changes proposed are in accordance with the Code of Sport Governance promoted by UK Sport and Sport England, whereby they recommend that at least 25% of the board is composed of independent non-executive directors. So once again, I ask for a show of hands, and I can confirm that on a show of hands, all members present voted in favour of this special resolution. We also received 28 proxy votes, with 27 votes in favour of this resolution and 1 against. I therefore declare that this resolution is carried by more than a 75% majority decision. So this ends the formal business of this year's AGM. Thank you very much. I will be back shortly to give you my Chief Executive's update, but in the meantime, I will hand you back to our Chair, Linda Whetstone.
2020 began full of hope and optimism, with starters in the first quarter ahead of budget, other indicators holding strong, and the prospect of an exciting year ahead, including Tokyo 2020, which would normally be an opportunity to showcase our sport at both the Olympics and Paralympics, not to mention the pleasure of supporting our athletes as they match up to the best in the world. But none of that was to be, as the whole country was shut down in March for 10 weeks in a way that had never happened before and was simply not on our radar screens as a possibility only a matter of weeks earlier. The BD team were magnificent in their reaction to these new circumstances, as they designed well-thought-out management plans to safeguard the long-term viability of the sport and the safety of all involved. Sadly, many of all our cherished plans for 2020 had to be put on hold, and a number of major events cancelled, including, unbelievably, the abandonment of the entire summer season. But during the lockdown, work was ongoing to bring the sport back to life as soon as permissible, as well as innovative ways to provide as much activity as possible online. Experience from which we are learning a great deal that will be of future benefit to members. Training and competitions have been back up and running since June and July, thanks to the COVID-secure protocols the team had worked so hard on. And it was possible to put a number of championships back on the calendar, despite local lockdowns continuing to cause some disruption and disappointment. It was a triumph of hard work, determination and first-class organisation that the Winter Championships could be reinstated in August, with 750 riders taking part, and also the Para Festival of Dressage at Solihull at the end of the month, enjoying a record entry of 170 riders. A rescheduled FEI Youth Championship took place in Hungary against the odds, and a number of our intrepid under-21 riders took part on a self-funded basis. The Young Horse Championships were rescheduled at Kiso for early October, with high-quality young horses on display, and we were all cheered up when our senior international riders performed so well at the CDI at Kiso only 2 weeks ago. Charlotte Dujardin excelling as ever by winning all 3 Grand Prix classes with great scores on 2 different horses, and don't we all love her for it? And still on an international theme, our international judges, Peter Storr and John Robson, were awarded the coveted 5-star status, so that was a really big fillip for all of us. We now have the high-profile show at Vale View coming up at the end of the month to include the Under-21 Championships, and we had originally hoped would take place at the new Nationals, and they are completely packed, followed by the National Training and Judges Convention online in November, and to top it all, a new Grand Prix Championship to be live-streamed free from Hartbury in December, when we hope to see all the top British Grand Prix combinations in action. What a treat to end a year which had seemed to be so totally without hope not 6 months before, and despite the fact that we're not out of the woods yet, but we live in hope. Thank you. Back to Jason.
Thank you, Linda. So Linda's already covered the main points really regarding the COVID crisis that we've encountered the year to date. But I thought it was worth just recapping some of the key dates that we've encountered over the last 6 months. We took the decision to suspend the sport actually back on the 17th of March, which was a week before the government announced their national lockdown. Initially, it was for 3 weeks, it extended to 6 weeks. In the end, we were suspended for a total period of 10 weeks. We did put a crisis plan in place in early April, followed by a full financial update. And then we published our comprehensive COVID operational plan on the 7th of May, which put really the foundations in place for the resumption of training in June and then the resumption of competition activity from July. We also launched our BD stakeholder toolkits. These were for our organisers, for competitors, for officials, and for coaches, which we hope have been very useful to everyone. And we've updated those on a regular basis throughout the whole crisis, including our members' Q&A, to try and give people the best possible guidance as part of the resumption of activity. Thankfully, we were able to get back up and running from the 1st of June, when regional training resumed in England, Scotland and Wales. From the 29th of June, indoor covered arenas were permitted for use in Scotland initially. That was then followed from the 4th of July in England, when competition resumed fully. 13th of July, we had outdoor competition permitted to restart in Wales. On the 7th of August, competition activity finally resumed in Scotland when numbers permitted, and then from the 10th of August, indoor facilities have been allowed to reopen in Wales. Although, as Linda mentioned, we've been frustrated by a lot of the local lockdowns, and now we have this national lockdown to contend with again in Wales, which will be with effect from this Friday, the 23rd of October, through to the 9th of November, which once again means that all activity is unfortunately suspended. But when we look at the impact that this has had on our business, on our organisation and our sport, it's obviously had a major impact on all of our revenue streams, whether that's membership, horse registrations, competition starters, sponsorship or commercial revenue. Fortunately, as Caroline indicated earlier, we have built up a strong reserves position over the past 5 years with 2.2 million surplus generated, which has put BD in a much better place to manage these type of force majeure events like COVID. And for those of you who've been in attendance at the AGM previously, you will know that I've emphasised this point on a number of occasions. This is why we built up our reserves. I've been through foot and mouth when I worked in horse racing. We've seen the impact of the equine influenza outbreak in Australia. We needed to have reserves that would protect the organisation and the sport against this type of crisis. So, we are very fortunate to have that strong reserves position. Nevertheless, we have put a number of measures in place to mitigate the financial impact of the crisis, including identifying cost savings, a reduction in our operational overheads. We took full advantage of the staff furlough scheme, and we had 50% of our staff on furlough in April, May, June and July. And we've obviously had to put some of our major projects on hold for this year. As Caroline mentioned, we're currently forecasting a loss of 275,000 for the financial year. However, please note the plus sign there. This obviously is very much subject to change. It assumes that we'll be able to continue running for the rest of the year as normal, which unfortunately is unlikely to be the case. As we're already seeing, we have local lockdowns, a national lockdown in Wales, and potentially more to follow. So that figure will unfortunately almost certainly increase by year end. Nevertheless, our worst case scenario at the start of the crisis was potentially 1.1 million. So that puts it into perspective in terms of the potential impact a financial crisis can have on an organisation and sport like British Dressage, but also what we've done to try and mitigate that impact. Our IT investment has facilitated a seamless transition to remote working, and thankfully over the last 3 years the investment that we put into BD Online, our cloud-based technology, as well as the digital telephony systems that we've got in place at head office, has meant that we were able to move to a working from home arrangement immediately as soon as we shut the office. And in fact the majority of our staff continue to work from home, although everyone is now back working full-time. We only actually have a skeleton staff of 12 in the office. Everyone else is still working from home. It was really unfortunate in a way that we had to deal with this crisis. As Linda mentioned, we had really exciting plans in the pipeline for 2020, but some initiatives have either had to be put on hold indefinitely, or at least the investment deferred until 2021 or beyond. We actually had a new 5-year strategy that had been approved and developed by the board, which was due to be launched to members at our Winter Championships in April. Again, we've had to cancel those plans and carry those forward to the spring next year, when hopefully we'll be emerging out the other side of the crisis. However, I will give you some headlines around the new strategy before the end this evening. Nevertheless, we still did undertake a couple of important initiatives in the first 6 months of this year. The Youth Pathway Review was already underway at the time of the crisis, so we continue to look at that, which involves streamlining and integrating all of our under-21 programmes. A number of those recommendations are already implemented, and we'll be carrying that forward into next year. The new judge education system continues to progress very well indeed. The selection and training of our judge educators and tutors is now complete, and we've started the rollout process for our workshops and our training materials. That education system will hopefully come to fruition in 2021 as planned. A number of our commercial projects had to be put on hold, but we had already completed a rebrand ready for launch again at the Winter Championships. So we have a new logo, exciting new marketing material ready to go, again, when the time is right and we're emerging out the other side of this crisis. So hopefully in 6 months' time, we'll be able to emerge from this last difficult 12 months in a very positive way, in what we hope will once again be an Olympic and Paralympic year. And as part of these commercial initiatives, we were planning a joint initiative with Horse and Country to launch BD TV, as well as a new merchandise partner. Those plans are still in the pipeline, and hopefully again we'll be able to give those a proper launch and a full promotional push in 2021. And finally, we still have phase 4 of our IT development, which involves further development of our CRM systems, our reporting and our membership communications, as well as developing the API for our organisers to fully automate the processes from entries through to results. All of that work is still planned, but again, we can only make that investment as and when it's appropriate. So we've taken a cautious approach, inevitably in 2020, but these are still on the development roadmap for 2021. In terms of a membership update, well, inevitably, the COVID crisis has had an impact on our membership numbers. We are down by roughly around 1,500 on the same period in 2019. That equates to roughly around 1,000 full members and 500 club members, although we have seen a number rejoin in the last 3 months, and we're very, very pleased with the response that we've had from our members as they have had the confidence to come back with the safety measures that we put in place to get out there and train and compete. The total active members, therefore, currently stands at around 15,000. This compares to the figure of 16,000 586 back in March before the COVID crisis struck. Horse registrations stand at 20,950. And again, that compares to pre-pandemic levels of 22,320 back in March, down 1,370. The total number of paid horses is 13,542 versus 14,737, so that's down just short of 1,200. But to mitigate the impact that this has had on members, we agreed as a board that it was appropriate that we should extend horse registrations by 2 months for England and 3 months for Scotland and Wales to reflect the loss of activity during the lockdown period, and that was at a total cost to BD of £125,000. In terms of our sport operations, our total budgeted revenue from competitor-started levies in the period from March to July 2020 equated to 108,000 lost income. Regional restrictions in the home nations and local lockdowns mean that the recovery has obviously been slower than initially anticipated. So we did very well in July, August and September, but it has slowed down now in October. We did actually have more starters in August and September than in the same 2 months last year. 22,800 horses came down the centre line, which is a fantastic result in the circumstances. And actually, when you look at the autumn period, September, October, November, we actually had a total of 554 fixtures scheduled to take place, which is back to 96% of the level from the same period last year. Although, again, inevitably that will be impacted now by these additional lockdown restrictions. As you may remember, summer qualifications carried forward to the winter season, which started on the 1st of July, and these remain valid until the 31st of December 2020, because we wanted to make sure, obviously, that members didn't miss out. Now, we haven't been standing still. We've still been progressing with a number of marketing initiatives this year. We have enhanced digital marketing in line with the new website, which we launched this time last year, as well as our new membership CRM system. This includes video content and enhanced social media output, interactive resources for BD Youth, including our horse care programs, which we launched back in December last year, and revamped sponsor social media competitions. And we're very grateful for all the loyalty and support demonstrated by all of our sponsors. We redesigned our training and education toolkits to support the new judges portfolio, as well as materials for the youth academies. And we've designed all the COVID-19 resources for competitors and venues that you've probably seen out and about around the country. Obviously, a big focus now is on the recovery period in terms of member retention and recruitment activity, and that will remain ongoing throughout the autumn and winter, although it will be very much dependent on what happens as we go through the course of the next few months. And as I mentioned, we have a rebrand of British Dressage to create a fresh new identity for the sport, but we will launch that as and when appropriate, so probably around about the spring next year. To give you some facts and figures relating to our marketing materials and also relating to, in particular, our new BD website. Since launching with website, we have actually had 423,411 visitors with over 3 million page views, which is fantastic. And as you can see, that's over a variety of different channels, whether it's mobile, desktop, or tablet. You can see the list of the top 10 most popular sections there. And unsurprisingly, the most popular news story was around the resumption of activity. As part of the website, we developed our COVID-19 hub, and that in itself has had over 67,000 unique page views. And of course, 9 out of 10 of the most read news stories came from our COVID-19 news section, unsurprisingly. On a more positive note, the Winter Dressage Championships produced some fantastic results. We had a total of 112,233 page views for our Winter Championships section, with almost 50,000 looking up our entries, times and results. And actually, we had over 55,500 views of our live streaming that we did for members with Horse and Country, which was free to view. And that included 35,653 unique visitors. So you can see the reach and the popularity of British dressage continues unabated, and you can see that through our social media channels too, with over 100,000 people reached via Facebook, 112,000 story impressions on Instagram, and almost 90,000 impressions on Twitter. So hopefully you feel that we've kept you in touch with everything that's been going on throughout the year. I do hope that you feel that we have kept you updated on all the latest developments as the government restrictions have been announced and how that impacts upon you as members, but also around the resumption of our training and competition activity. It was very important for us that we continue to provide updates for all of our stakeholder groups, but that regular communication with our members has been one of our key objectives for this year. So at this point, I'm going to hand over to our Chief Operating Officer, Ben Waterhouse, who will go through some of our IT programs and regional activities. Ben.
Thank you, Jason, and good evening, everyone. I'll start off with our launch of phase 3 of our IT project, which is almost a year to the day now, and it's been a fantastic year since that launched. The CRM system provides members with full ownership of their profile and their details, and in effect you can see exactly the same information that we hold in the office online at the same time as we can. It's a single portal for member and horse information, our competition records and results, a one-stop shop, if you will. It provides members with the ability to join, to renew, to change their personal details and update their communication preferences. Alongside this, 4 months ago now, we relaunched our classified site. This was based on member feedback, and it's proved really popular despite the fact we've been going through the pandemic. So far, we've had over 630 adverts placed in the first 4 months, with 25,000 visitors in total, with 288,000 page views. So far, it's generated over £5,000 of revenue, which after the first month being free of charge and in the middle of a pandemic, we're really pleased with. In terms of our own IT development, as Jason said, it's been a really challenging year with the pandemic and the move from being totally office-based to being totally home-based. So our investment over the last few years in our internal systems has really borne fruit this year. We've invested in our SharePoint site, which provides staff with an intranet system, and crucially, it's online and cloud-based file sharing, which again has facilitated our ability to work from home much easier. The office closure meant we had to transition 30 staff with about 2 weeks' notice from the office to working from home. But with BD Online, our digital tech and our cloud-based systems, it's been a seamless transition. We've also started to use Microsoft Teams to a much larger degree to facilitate our effective home working for messaging, meetings and file sharing. And of course, everyone's the same now with their use of Zoom as well. Our IT systems have proved to be flexible, adaptable, reliable and robust. One of the key areas I look after is our regional activity, managing the RDOs and our regional team of volunteers. And again, 2019 proved to be a really successful year. We saw a 7.5% increase against the 2018 figures, and we were really pleased to see an increase in senior training and a huge increase in our coaching activity. At the start of this year, we went through an internal review and implemented changes to our regional boundaries to ensure a more equal spread of members and venues per region. The changes we made were that Hampshire and Isle of Wight moved from the southern region, Leicestershire, Herefordshire and Worcestershire moved in the central region, and this equalised the numbers of members and venues across the country. 2020 has been challenging, as we've all said, but we're really pleased that we've had over 6,000 participants in our regional activity in the year to date, with a huge success being our online judge training. So I want to say a big thank you to the RDOs, the tutor judges and our regional committees for their embracing of this technology. The numbers have been fantastic over the last few months. In terms of our volunteers, as I've mentioned, we couldn't do a lot of the work we do without our volunteers in the regions and our technical committees. So I want to take this opportunity to say a big thank you for the help and support provided by the people who are finishing their terms of office with us this year. I'll just read through them. So for judges and para committee, thank you to Sarah Leach, Train International, Paul Fielder. In our Scotland region, we say thank you to our chair Sharon, Lindop and Claire Molyneux. In Central region, Dawn Fleming. In the Southern region, Sam Osborne, again as chair, Jane Lewis, Sam Mabb and Emma Roach. The Eastern region, Hayley Lydiard. In the Northern region, Lucinda Bird, Gwyneth Lewis, Lynn White, Charlotte Clark and Emily Clark Atwood. In the Northwest, Danielle Marshall. And in the Southwest, Nick Rogers. A huge thank you to all of those people I've just named for their help and support over the last few years. With so many people leaving us at the end of this year, we now have a number of vacancies we're looking to fill. So I'd encourage anyone who's interested in getting involved in volunteering for British Dressage to please head to our website where all these details are listed. We're looking for people to come and step up and be a big part of the BD community. In Scotland, we're looking for a new chair and a para rep. In the Northern region, a BD youth and judge rep. Central, a marketing rep. In the Eastern region, a senior training rep. Southern region, a new chair again, a BD youth and marketing representatives, and a county coordinator for Hampshire. In the Southwest, a para rep and a county coordinator for Wiltshire. And finally, we're looking for some BD youth ambassadors in the Northern, Wales and Northwest regions. Again, if you're interested, please head to our website where you'll be able to find out more information. Thank you very much. I'll hand back to Jason now.
Thank you, Ben. And if I could echo that message to say a huge thanks to all of our volunteers, whether you're on the board, the technical committees, the regional committees, or indeed the volunteers that make our sport happen out there in the field, whether it's our training or our competition activity. A huge thanks to every single one of you for all of your loyalty, support, commitment, the enthusiasm that you've shown and the positivity you've displayed in helping us get the sport back up and running this year has been immense, and we are very, very grateful for all of your support. If you want to get involved, please do. All the details are on the BD website of the current regional vacancies that we have available, and we'd be delighted to welcome you. So I would just like to finish off before the member questions to give you a flavour of our strategic plan. Now, we were going to be launching the full 5-year strategy back in April at our Winter Championships and then take it on the road. We had planned a members' roadshow that would go around all 8 regions. We will hopefully resurrect these plans next year, but we felt that in the COVID crisis it was not appropriate to be launching a new strategy, which of course inevitably is going to have to be reviewed in a post-COVID world. And we may well take the opportunity to actually either increase the emphasis of some of the points that we've put forward or reassess the priorities and the hierarchy of what we're going to do over the next 5 years. So, of course, we have to take stock as and when the crisis is over. But at that point, we will, of course, share our strategy with you, ideally, hopefully in the spring of next year. But to give you just a basic overview of some of our plans. In terms of our key priorities, well, obviously, number one priority is that we continue to develop into a modern, professional, national governing body with high standards of governance, accountability and transparency at all times. We've talked a lot this evening about IT, and rightly so, because we've invested a significant amount of members' money in our IT systems over the last 3 years, and it has all started to come to fruition. As Ben mentioned, we wouldn't have been able to facilitate the move to remote working without it, and whether it's BD Online, our new website, or indeed our internal processes and procedures, the IT that we now have in place means that we're able to deliver a much higher standard of service for our members. But we don't stop still. The IT continues to evolve and develop, and phases 4 and potentially even phase 5 of our IT systems will take place over the next few years, which, as I mentioned earlier, will include automated results for all organisers and online entries for our BD Championships. What we want to do is have a facilitated end-to-end automated solution, so it's a much better service for our members from the point of entry right the way through to when you get your results. And that is now a realistic target for us in the next 12 to 24 months. We wanted to conduct a full brand review and refresh to represent contemporary values, image and promotion of the sport to a wider public. And that was very important for us in an Olympic and Paralympic year. Obviously, it is normally our showcase. It's when we have the sport in the shop window. And we were wanting to use that as a platform to really to promote dressage to the wider world again. We'd seen it very successful as a membership driver both for London and Rio, and I'm sure Tokyo will be the same. So in due course, hopefully we'll be able to relaunch that new brand identity and share our new marketing material with you. Importantly, we are now moving much more into the digital space. So the strategy has a lot around the digitalization of BD activity, whether that's social media engagement, interactive webinars, e-learning platforms, or development of a BD app. All of those are on the horizon. We've already moved into this sphere, and obviously some of that has been accelerated by COVID. All of our technical and regional committee meetings have been now held by Zoom. We've held judge training via Zoom. We have Cloud Trainer managing some of our training and education programs. We're talking about having the National Convention operating remotely next month with a special pay-per-view option. So we are now starting to move into this digital space, and I think you'll see more and more of that happening now, particularly post-COVID, where we're looking at a more efficient, a more effective way of operating. And as part of that, as we attract more people from the outside world, when you see the numbers that we deliver on our website, on our social media channels, and through our live streaming, we obviously want to attract commercial partners and sponsorship from outside the equestrian sector too. So developing that 5-year strategy will take us from take BD from Tokyo through to Paris in the cycle. In terms of the sport, we want to make sure that we have a balanced competition structure that continues to offer opportunities for all, increase the level of engagement with our members, whether that's centrally or through our regional structures, offer more added value coaching and training opportunities. We've talked a lot about establishing our formal and professional judge education framework, and that work remains ongoing, but is making fantastic progress. We want to clearly define our development pathways for our youth and under 21 programs at all levels, whether that's regional, national, or international. And most importantly, ensure that the sport is inclusive, diverse, and accessible to all at all times, including further development of our para pathways too. So that gives you an overview really of the key priorities on our strategic plan, although there is obviously a lot more detail that lies behind this, and we will share that with you hopefully over the next 6 months or so. But to finish off this evening, as always at the AGM, we have member questions. It is slightly strange this evening in that we don't have anyone here to offer questions from the floor, but we do have 2 questions that were submitted by members in advance, so thank you for that. If you have been engaging with our social media channels this evening and submitting any questions, don't worry, we won't be answering them this evening, but we will be capturing that and answering them on our website. So do watch out when we have the full notes appearing from this evening's AGM and proceedings. We will also be answering any other questions that have been submitted after the deadline of Friday last week. But in terms of the 2 formal questions that we had one question from Annabelle Darrell-Rue. She asked, although some members are happy with the new website layout, I find the new website cumbersome and laborious to navigate. I think it's most difficult for BD judges. To find out the information I need for upgrading, I need to navigate through 5 separate sections. Please can you investigate this and maybe have a page specifically for existing judges on the first page of the site, or a link from the page that I reach having logged on? Now, the answer is this continues to be a work in progress. Obviously, the website was launched in October last year, and we have tried to continue to further develop it through the COVID crisis. But obviously, we're implementing a complete overhaul of the judge education system at the moment. And this will involve a number of changes to the way that we deliver judge training and assessment, moving to a different system for those wanting to upgrade, and including further online judge training activity on a national basis. So we are currently in the transitionary phase, and we still need to ensure that the information on our website covers all activity as we move from the old system to the new. So with the launch of the new system, we'll be overhauling the structure and navigation of the judge pages as they appear on the website, and we'll carry out some audience testing with selected judges to ensure that this is easier to navigate. However, we have already launched a centralised judge training calendar, which went live on the resumption of activity back in June, plus dedicated pages for new judges, as well as current judges looking to upgrade, and the judge education workforce. Further enhancements will be forthcoming as the new system is rolled out over the course of the next 6 months. So as I say, please do watch this space. Our second question comes from Rosalind Tate. She asks, how many people have lost competition points since lockdown ended, irrespective of the reasons? Now, this is due to a recent post on social media in which a poll revealed that over 50 people had lost points, and there were over 170 comments on the subject. Well, as everyone will know, it is actually a condition of entry for BD competitions that all riders have a valid membership and horse registration when competing. We appreciate that this has been a tough year for everyone, but it is still vitally important that we adhere to our rules and regulations and apply them consistently to all members. This eligibility criteria is stated in the BD Members Handbook in the membership, horse registration and entry sections. Our membership and registration renewal reminders have continued to be issued regardless of the current situation. That's 6 weeks, 3 weeks and a week before renewal. So everyone should have continued to receive the emails and text communications from BD as normal, regardless of when your renewal date was. We've endeavoured to keep members up to date throughout the crisis, informing them regularly about the return to training and competition activity, to ensure that everyone would be ready for when the sport was able to resume. Now, this included reminders in our e-newsletters, our email notifications, website updates, and social media posts to ensure that memberships and horse registrations were up to date when competition restarted. Now, riders failing to have a current paid membership at the time of competition means that they are unfortunately ineligible to compete. This means that their results are excluded and any points that are earned do not count towards qualification. Now, these exclusions affected 228 individual members in July, 298 in August, and 162 in September. Now, to put this into perspective, over 32,800 riders went down the centre line in the 3 months following the resumption of activity. So these exclusions represent just 2% of the total number of starters during this period, although the September figure was down to 1.5%. This is broadly in line with figures from previous years. 622 results were excluded in the same 3 months in 2019, which is a difference of only 66, despite there actually being more starters in August and September this year. Now, of those 688 riders, over 600 have subsequently renewed their membership and horse registrations, so we don't see this as being a major problem. Where there are extenuating circumstances, we always look to exercise our discretion and offer flexibility, if at all possible. In response to the Facebook thread in question, we have also now instigated text reminders on the day that memberships are due for renewal, and we will also phone members that have competed within 7 days of their horse registration or membership expiring. Now, this has important insurance implications, as members would not be covered by BD in the event of an accident, and that is why we have to apply this strictly. It is also vital that we protect the integrity of the sport by applying the same rules to all members and ensure that it's fair and equitable to everyone. Now, of course, this is one of the main reasons why we moved to an auto-renewal subscription basis for all membership and horse registrations, to ensure that these do not lapse accidentally and members do not miss out on their important results or qualification points. Once everyone gets moved over to this new auto-renewal system, this is a problem that immediately goes away, as memberships will never lapse by accident or without you knowing. So, actually, hopefully, now that we've reached the 1-year anniversary from the launch of the new BD Online system and the subscription model for payment processing, then actually this won't be a problem in future years. So hopefully that answers and addresses your concerns. Okay, so time to wrap up. And I just want to say a final thank you to everyone just before closing, for all of the kind messages of support that we have received over the past 6 months. The BD board, volunteers and staff have all been working incredibly hard behind the scenes on your behalf, so your continued loyalty and contribution to our sport is not only much appreciated, but extremely valued, especially in this of all years. So to all BD members, whether you're organisers, coaches, owners, breeders, judges, writers and stewards, or our committees of amazing volunteers up and down the country, thank you all so very much. Together we will get through this crisis and hopefully emerge even stronger out of the other side. Thank you for joining us this evening. Hopefully we can all be reunited again in person in the not too distant future, whether at one of our many shows, training events or championships, or indeed hopefully next year's AGM. But in the meantime, please take care and stay safe. Thank you.